It might look like a clown, but beware. With deadly venom hidden in its legs, a sixth sense that allows it to hunt even while blindfolded, and a legacy that outlived the dinosaurs, the platypus is nature's strangest Frankenstein. We explore its history spanning millions of years, a story that began before the dinosaurs, revealing the link between mammals and reptiles. We examine a bizarre anatomy that led early scientists to call it a fake, appearing as if organs from different creatures were stitched together. We dive into its superpowers, a sixth sense that detects electric waves to hunt underwater with eyes and ears shut, and a venomous spur hidden in its leg. We look at the weirdest methods in the animal kingdom, laying eggs yet nursing young, sweating milk like perspiration without nipples. And we uncover the struggle for survival of this living fossil, hiding in the rivers of Australia amidst modern environmental challenges. Welcome to a new episode analyzing the biological puzzle that continues to amaze the scientific world. This is the Monolith English. The platypus we see today didn't just appear on Earth overnight. Behind it lies a history spanning millions of years, a story that began long before the dinosaurs. This is a journey through that history. First, we must understand the synapsids. If we trace the history of the modern platypus back, we arrive at Earth approximately 310 million years ago. The synapsids lived then. At first glance, they looked like large lizards or reptiles, but they weren't fully reptiles, nor were they mammals. Science calls them mammal-like reptiles. This was the first step toward mammal evolution. They had a specific opening in their skull behind the eye, allowing for strong muscle attachment for biting. You could call these synapsids the forefathers of all mammals, including the platypus. From synapsids came the therapsids. Here, evolution gained speed. While synapsids walked like reptiles with bellies dragging and legs to the side, therapsids underwent a massive change. Their legs moved underneath their bodies, a key mammal trait. They also developed specialized teeth, front for biting, side for chewing. The ancestors of the platypus emerged from this lineage. It was the state just before the transition from reptile to mammal was complete. If you ask why the platypus still lays eggs, the answer is that they kept this tradition from these therapsid ancestors. Then came the most critical moment in evolutionary history, the Great Split. Let's travel to the Jurassic period, about 166 million years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. Mammals were tiny, rat-like creatures. This is when the mammal family divided. One path led to placental mammals, giving rise to humans, cows, and whales, and marsupials like kangaroos. But the second path was taken by the ancestors of the platypus and echidna. They didn't adopt live birth. Instead, they kept the reptilian habit of laying eggs. Thus, 166 million years ago, the ancestors of the platypus separated from the ancestors of humans forever. This is why the platypus is called a living fossil. They still carry old habits that other mammals abandoned. Now, let's look at the evidence. What were the ancestors like? Meet Steropodon. Found in New South Wales, Australia, the fossil Steropodon galmani is about 105 million years old. Fascinatingly, this fossil was preserved in opal. Larger than the modern platypus, it swam in Australian rivers alongside dinosaurs. It had canals in its lower jaw, suggesting it already possessed electrosensors in its bill. Another key ancestor is Tynolophos, living about 120 million years ago. Although older than Steropodon, it didn't have the distinct bill of the modern platypus. It looked more like a rat. This tells us that the famous duck-like bill evolved much later, as their bodies slowly adapted for aquatic life. Then there is the evolutionary giant, Obdurodon. While today's platypus has no teeth as an adult, history had what we could call a killer platypus. Living between 5 and 23 million years ago, Obdurodon was twice the size of the modern animal and possessed powerful teeth to crush hard-shelled prey and large fish. The platypus likely lost its teeth over time as it shifted to softer food. We must also talk about geography and the supercontinent Gondwana. Today, the platypus is found only in Australia. But millions of years ago, Australia, South America, and Antarctica were one landmass. Platypus ancestors roamed this entire region. A tooth of an ancestor named Monotremodum was found in Argentina, proving they once lived in Antarctica back when it was a land of forests and rivers, not ice. Then came Earth's greatest catastrophe, the KT extinction. About 66 million years ago, a massive meteor struck, wiping out the dinosaurs and 75% of life. Miraculously, the ancestors of the platypus survived. How? Their lifestyle saved them. Being aquatic protected them from heat and fire. They could burrow underground, and they didn't rely on large prey, feeding instead on small worms and insects. While the dinosaurs fell, the platypus lineage endured. Scientifically, they are known as monotremes. Mono means one, and treme means whole. This refers to their single opening, the cloaca. Unlike other mammals, the platypus uses this one exit for urination, defecation, and reproduction, laying eggs. It is the strongest evidence of their reptilian heritage, a feature they never discarded. Finally, the most recent evidence, the genetic cocktail. In 2008, scientists mapped the platypus genome. The results were shocking. Their DNA is a mix, containing mammal genes for milk, reptile genes for venom and egg-laying, and even sequences similar to birds. It is not a joke. It is nature's experiment. The platypus DNA is the blueprint of the transition from reptile to mammal. When studying the platypus, the most fascinating element is its anatomy. Why did nature design a form that appears to be stitched together from different creatures? Let's examine this piece by piece. We begin with a historic misunderstanding from 1799. When the first dried specimen of a platypus reached the Natural History Museum in London, scientists simply refused to believe it. The renowned scientist George Shaw suspected it was a prank. He was convinced that someone had sewn a duck's beak, a beaver's tail, and an otter's feet onto another animal's body. His skepticism was so deep that he even took a pair of scissors to the dried skin, shaving away fur to check for stitches. But there were no stitches. It took years to accept this as nature's own creation. Now let's look at the feature that caused this confusion, the bill. Although we often call it duck-billed, it is nothing like a bird's beak. A duck's bill is hard and bony. The platypus's bill, however, is soft, rubbery, and leathery. Contains no bones but is packed with nerve endings. It is not just a tool for eating. It is a highly sensitive tactile organ. Next are its incredible feet. Since the platypus lives both on land and in water, it possesses hybrid feet. The front feet have webbing between the toes. In water, this webbing spreads out to act as a paddle. But once on land, the webbing folds back behind the toes, revealing sharp claws used for digging burrows. The same foot acts as an oar in the river and a shovel on the bank. Then there is the tail. While it looks flat like a beaver's and acts as a rudder for steering, its primary function is different. It is an energy bank. Much like a camel stores fat in its hump, the platypus stores fat in its tail. During times of food scarcity, winter, or when a female is nursing, this stored energy is crucial. You can tell if a platypus is healthy simply by checking if its tail is thick and plump. To survive in the water, nature has gifted it a waterproof jacket. This fur is double-layered. The long outer hairs block water, while the dense, woolly underfur traps a layer of air. This means that no matter how long it stays submerged, its skin remains dry, and the trapped air keeps its body heat from escaping. Inside the body, there is a shocking evolutionary change: the loss of the stomach. We know that food usually goes to the stomach to be broken down by acid, but the platypus has no stomach. The esophagus connects directly to the intestine. Evolution caused them to lose the genes for producing stomach acid, likely because their diet of simple proteins didn't require complex digestion. If you watch them walk, you will notice they don't move like typical mammals. While dogs or cows have legs positioned beneath their bodies, the platypus has legs attached to the sides, much like lizards or crocodiles. This means they expend more energy to keep their bellies off the ground, another remnant of their reptilian heritage. Supporting this gait is the pectoral girdle. Their shoulders contain a T-shaped bone called the interclavicle. This bone is found in dinosaurs and reptiles but is absent in most mammals. It provides immense strength, allowing them to swim through strong currents and dig through hard earth. Looking at the face, the eyes and ears are situated in a unique groove. On land, they are open. But the moment the platypus dives, muscles close this groove tight, creating a watertight seal. This means that underwater, the platypus is effectively blind and deaf. Finally, a recent marvel discovered in 2020, biofluorescence. Since they are nocturnal hunters, their fur holds a secret. Under ultraviolet light, their brown coat glows in shades of green or cyan. This is extremely rare in mammals. Scientists believe this ability might help them identify each other in murky waters, or perhaps attract prey in the dark. In the previous segment, we discussed the platypus's bizarre anatomy. But how that body functions is an even greater marvel, especially its method of hunting underwater. First, we must understand the concept of blind hunting. When a platypus dives to hunt, something incredible happens. It shuts its eyes, closes its ears, and seals its nostrils. Effectively, it moves through the water blind, deaf, and unable to smell. Yet, even in murky water and total darkness, it pinpoints tiny shrimp and worms hiding in the mud with absolute precision. This is where the platypus's sixth sense comes into play. Its soft bill contains about 40,000 microscopic pores, which act as electroreceptors. Every living thing on Earth generates a small amount of electricity when its muscles contract. Even a small shrimp moving its tail creates a faint electric field in the water. Humans cannot detect this, but the sensors on the platypus's bill can. Aside from sharks, the platypus is the only creature capable of detecting these electric waves with such accuracy. It doesn't just detect electricity. It also detects movement through mechanoreceptors. When prey moves, it displaces water, creating pressure waves. The bill contains pushrod sensors to feel these changes. When electrosensors and mechanosensors work together, the platypus gets the exact coordinates of its prey. You may have noticed the platypus moving its head side to side while swimming. This is called saccadic movement. It isn't random. The animal is using its bill like a radar. By comparing the time delay between the arrival of the electric signal and the water movement, much like we estimate the distance of a storm by observing the gap between lightning and thunder, it calculates exactly how far away the prey is. To process all this data, a massive portion of its brain, the somatosensory cortex, is dedicated to reading signals from the bill. In the platypus's world, touch and electricity are far more important than sight. If it ever needs to open its eyes underwater, nature has provided a backup: the nictitating membrane. This is a third eyelid, common in birds and reptiles, which slides across the eye like a pair of goggles, protecting it while allowing the animal to see. But the bill isn't its only secret weapon. We now turn to the other side of the platypus, the venomous mammal. Very few mammals are venomous, and the platypus possesses the most potent venom of them all. Notably, only the males carry this weapon. On their hind legs, just above the heel, sits a sharp, hollow bone spur about 1.5 centimeters long. The venom is supplied by the crural gland located in the thigh. Interestingly, this gland doesn't produce venom year-round. It swells and becomes active only during the breeding season in spring. This tells us that the spur isn't used for hunting prey, but for fighting off rival males to win a mate. What happens if a human is stung? It leads to a condition called hyperalgesia. The venom won't usually kill a human, but the pain is beyond description. It causes immediate swelling and agony that spreads through the body. Because the venom directly attacks the nervous system, it heightens sensitivity to pain, making even a gentle touch unbearable. Scientists are baffled by the fact that even strong painkillers like morphine often fail to provide relief. The pain can last for days or even months. However, there is a silver lining for humans. The venom contains proteins called defensins, which have the ability to destroy bacteria and viruses. Researchers believe that in the future, medicine derived from platypus venom could help us fight antibiotic-resistant superbugs. The most defining feature separating the platypus from other mammals, and even humans, is its reproduction. The science behind this egg-laying mammal is complex. We start with their genetics. In humans, gender is determined by 2 chromosomes, X and Y. But nature hid a surprise in the platypus. It doesn't have two. It has 10 sex chromosomes, 5 XS and 5 YS. Under a microscope, they appear linked in a chain. Interestingly, some of these chromosomes resemble the Z chromosomes of birds rather than mammals, reaffirming their ancient evolutionary link to reptiles and birds. Then comes the courtship. Before mating, the male and female perform a beautiful ritual called the circle dance, where they hold each other's tails and spin in the water, sometimes for hours. After conception, the mother prepares by building nursery burrows. Unlike her usual resting spots, these are complex tunnels up to 30 meters long, designed to protect her young from floods, heat, and predators. She lines the end of the burrow with leaves to create a soft nest. Here is the main event, egg laying. About 21 days after mating, she lays 1 to 3 eggs. These aren't like chicken eggs. They are small, about 11 millimeters, and leathery like a reptile's. To incubate them, she doesn't sit on top like a bird. Instead, she curls up, tucking the eggs between her tail and belly to keep them warm with her body heat. 10 days later, they hatch. The hatchling is called a puggle. It is tiny, the size of a bean, blind, deaf, and hairless. This brings us to the strangest mammalian trait, nursing without nipples. The platypus essentially sweats milk. Mammary glands secrete milk through pores onto the skin, pooling in grooves on her abdomen. The puggles simply lap it up from her fur. This milk is extraordinary. Since the burrow is dark and muddy, the milk is exposed to harmful bacteria. To protect the vulnerable puggle, the milk contains a natural antibiotic called monotreme lactation protein, or MLP. It is so effective at destroying bacteria that scientists are studying it today to fight antibiotic-resistant superbugs. Another curiosity is their teeth. While adults are toothless, puggles are actually born with milk teeth. They lose these after about 4 months when they start eating solid food, replacing them with hard keratin grinding pads. Finally, consider their body temperature. While most mammals, including humans, sit around 37 degrees Celsius, the platypus maintains a cool 32 degrees. This low metabolic rate helps them conserve energy and hold their breath longer underwater. If you look at the daily routine of a platypus, you realize it is a story of hard work. Their struggle for survival begins with their lifestyle. First, they lead a solitary life. Platypuses are not social creatures. They do not live in groups or seek to communicate. Each individual claims a territory and prefers to live alone. Even if they cross paths, they simply ignore each other. They only meet to mate during the breeding season. Otherwise, they are incredibly shy animals. Their survival depends entirely on their diet. Living in cold water requires a high metabolism to maintain body heat, which demands immense energy. Consequently, they spend up to 12 hours a day in the water, consuming about 20% of their body weight in food daily. For a 1 kilogram platypus, that means eating 200 grams of worms, shrimp, and larvae every single day. This is where their cheek pouches come into play. A platypus does not swallow its prey underwater. Instead, it has pouches in its cheeks, similar to a hamster or a monkey. It stuffs the prey, along with mud and gravel, into these pouches. Once full, it surfaces, takes a breath, and begins to eat. Since adults have no teeth, they rely on grinding pads. They use the gravel stored in their cheeks as makeshift tools to crush hard shells against the keratin pads inside their mouths. Once the food is ground down, they spit out the stones. Scientists classify this behavior as a form of tool use. Despite being aquatic, their diving skills have limits. As mammals with lungs, they must surface to breathe. Typically, a dive lasts between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, though they can stay under for up to 10 minutes in rare cases. They conserve oxygen by lowering their heart rate, a condition known as bradycardia. However, if trapped underwater for too long, they risk drowning. Their habitat is also very specific. They are found in only one place on Earth, Eastern Australia and Tasmania. They require freshwater rivers and lakes with sturdy banks and roots for digging burrows. They cannot survive in saltwater. In the wild, they face many natural predators. In the water, crocodiles and large eels hunt them. On land, Pythons and goannas lie in wait, while hawks and owls attack from the sky. Yet, the greatest threat to their existence comes from humans. Plastic pollution is a major killer. Floating rubber bands, hair ties, and plastic rings become deadly traps. A curious platypus might swim through a ring, but it cannot use its hands to remove it. As the animal grows, the plastic cuts into its neck, causing fatal injuries or starvation. Abandoned fishing nets or ghost nets also drown them. Another silent threat is dams. When rivers are dammed, platypus populations are fragmented. Those upstream cannot move downstream and vice versa. This leads to genetic isolation and inbreeding, which weakens their immune systems and accelerates extinction. Currently, the International Union for Conservation of Nature lists them as near threatened. Bushfires and droughts in Australia have drastically reduced their numbers. If the platypus disappears, we lose more than just an animal. We lose the only living proof of 166 million years of mammalian evolution. That is why the scientific world is fighting so hard to save them.